Some church lady snapping a fan.
Please.
Wait, what'd you say?
I said, can we get to this football game, please?
Can we get, yeah. Listen, every uncle in there is already mad about football. Like that's the baseline for church. Every man in there is already upset. Half of them are listening to it on the game, on the, you know, on the, like no one's deaf in church, actually. You know what I mean? It's just dudes listening to football games. But when the mothers start snapping their fans or start like adjusting, if you see like 30 women adjust their seats at the same time, you have fucked up. You are in some serious shit.
It was time to wrap this up 10 minutes ago.
It was. People have been timing. They have things in the crock pot. They have things in the crock pot.
For sure.
And there's a perfect balance that has to happen.
Can I get a 2-sentence benediction and bounce, please? And thank you.
Actually, the biggest crime of all may be the long benediction.
Truly.
Right?
Truly.
Because we've heard you preach.
Everybody is edge of the seat. We're so close. We're almost there.
We sang the last good song, probably one that everybody likes. Yep. You know what I mean? Everybody's fired up. They want to shake hands. If there's a church lunch afterwards, they're already trying to figure out how moral is it to jockey for position to get the good fried chicken when you come to the church. You know what I mean? Where in this, who can I cut in this line?
But not completely moral either. There's a spectrum to be had here.
I remember one time, a complete teenage monster. I ate 8 deviled eggs. Like I just went to the deviled egg thing and just janks 8 of them off the plate. And my mom was shamed. Do you know what I mean? She was just like, how dare you? Nobody else wanted these deviled eggs.
You can't even put them back.
No, deviled eggs.
What have you done? You have brought disrepute on the whole family.
Because you can with if your mom sees you grab too much fried chicken, she can be like, put that shit back, and nobody's gonna complain. You know what I mean? Everybody's gonna be all right. You touch a deviled egg, and that is your egg. That is, you better eat it.
Yeah, for sure. And now there's 4 of them left, and everyone's gonna look over here.
Just a fucking monster, man. Yeah. Wyatt's starting to get into that early teen phase where he's just hungry all the time. He just you can't fill him up, which is great. But it's also I remember that time period where I don't know, I just ate 13 waffles, a ham, whatever else is around.
Where's the rest of it?
Yeah, it's crazy shit, man.
Glad what was your
all right, I'm going to some kind of church lunch kind of situation, something like this. What was the food you were hoping to find? What was the thing you were hoping to grab if you were getting in that situation?
Oh man, probably. I mean, the brisket for sure. If there was some brisket to be had, that was that was the spot for sure.
Yeah.
And with the potato salad next to that, and have you heard this John Marco Ceresi bit about religion?
No, I don't think so.
All right, well, so he's talking about, he's an atheist, right? So as most comedians are, and so he's talking about the important thing about religion is that it's just a scheduling thing, It's a reason for us to all get together in the same space. We just all decided that on
Sunday this time we're
going to get together and we were going to see each other. And now that I don't have that, I miss it. I notice that I don't have any people around. And what I am really learning from this is that the key to having friends is hating gay people. So forgive me, sir, for biting your bit. That was not my joke.
No. It's such a good bit. It's such a good bit. That's really funny. That really got me. That's really good. Such a good one. Oh, man.
But the cultural bit of churches and all that is a thing that, I have been telling people that I am starting a cult.
Right.
I just tell them that straight ahead. And honestly, is getting better reactions than I originally thought it would. When I first started saying it, I was like, I'm just going to say some wild shit and see what happens. And for the most part, people are like, oh, word? Tell me more. You know?
It's a good time for cults. People are like, look, I'm looking for something to do.
Honestly.
Feels like, if you feel like the kind of guy who it's
everybody gonna be there on Sunday, all right, let's go check it out.
You're probably not gonna poison. You don't feel like you're gonna poison people. You know what I mean? Like you're not at that stage of cult yet. You know what I mean? Like you don't feel like you're gonna make everybody wear the same clothes. So that's nice.
For sure. Yeah, I try to avoid the cult of personality, but man, people really want me to lead a cult. They say that a lot.
It's
several people
interesting.
In different instances have told me that they want me to lead a cult, that they'll join the cult that I lead.
Andy makes a joke that if you give me 5 minutes in a room full of people, I'm going to be starting one. You know what I mean? There will be people who's doing it. And we were in line at a sandwich store, convenience shop, bait shop off a lake in Vermont, right? Like in rural Vermont. But it's one of those touristy towns. So there's 20 people waiting to get sandwiches in this thing. There's a long line. And I was bored, so I was like, let me talk to people who were in this line. And by the end, I had numbers, I had friends, I had, you know what I mean? You gave me 15 minutes and he was like, no, I've been making that joke all week, but then he went and did it in the line because he was bored. And I was like, yeah, I'm bored. I need to entertain myself. I think a lot of cults start that way. If you're reasonably charismatic and you're bored, you're like, wouldn't it be cool if we all wore the same clothes? And someone else is like, yeah, that sounds great. And then they all start doing it. And you're like, well, I don't know. What else can I get them to do?
Maybe so. Yeah. I don't have the same kind of, I'm very charismatic and people really like the vibes in the room and that kind of thing. But I'm not as gregarious as you are. I'm very, I'm much more likely to stand in line quietly than I am to be like, all right, it's time to make friends just because I'm bored. You know what I mean? I'll sing songs to myself because I'm bored or something like that, Right. But we just got to
divvy up the church. That's the thing. So I'll do the minister work. You can be minister of music. We'll get this thing set, Sure.
Well, I mean, as yet, I am the one out here starting a cult. So
that's true.
By the way, today is launch day. It is out today. We've got Which Way to Wisdom, the new course is out right now. We're out here starting religions and all that. And we are, I'm very excited to see if people are going to engage at all, for one thing, but then if people do engage insofar as they do engage deeply, I'm so interested to see what folks think about it because on the one hand, I try very much to be rooted and grounded in the way that I operate. Everything, I believe very much in the observability of the way. Yeah. So it is true that the way is not knowable, but the way is observable. And so you can get a grasp on what's going on in the world by paying attention, and it's self-evident. You can figure it out, right? And so I am very strong on everything. All of our spiritual truths must be grounded in some kind of observability, right?
Yeah.
So I try to be very grounded about that kind of thing. But also, I am making a lot of this up. A lot of this is synthesized in my head. Every time I try to explain the concept of shape to people, they're like, I don't think I know what you mean by shape. And I'm always like, it is exactly the same thing that you already think when you think of shape. That is exactly what I'm talking about. And it blows people's heads up because they just have never put it together in this way before.
Totally, dude. I'm excited for what people are going to get into it too, because you and I've been talking about a lot of the stuff that's in it, and I've been hearing little noises from people on the past couple episodes we've done from here. I've been hearing little rumblings about how people are excited about what we're talking about, excited about how things are going. But there's a couple threads to what you just said I want to follow up on. One is that I was listening to Peter Gray give an interview with this dude Ranveer, who is Indian Tantra practitioner and everything else, and so it's a really respectful, beautiful interview, and a really good meeting of different cultures and talking about cross-cultural sharing, and really, really good. But he was talking about this is what we were just talking about. My brain, it's the end of my day.
Talking about synthesis, cultural synthesis, and shape. The concept of shape is not new, but it seems new to people.
No. It was the idea of the new religion stuff. Sorry. So, Peter got talking about how there was a point in the last 30 years of magic where people started talking about magic is just tech. You know what I mean? Magic is just a way to go through the world. It's just a way to do things. It's just, it works. It's observable, but it just is what it is, right? There's no way of self-improvement there in the same way that actually, if you look at Golden Dawn guys or Aleister Crowley or stuff, they saw magic as a way of sort of spiritual attainment, right? Like when Yeats is working in the Golden Dawn, he thinks he's going to transform his spirit, right, through the process of doing magic. And Peter Gray makes the point, he's like, I think we sort of threw the baby out with the bathwater when we stopped saying this was about self-transformation, that it's actually important for magic to be about self-transformation and progressing and evolving your soul through this practice, through this thing. There's a very similar thing with what you're doing and what you're talking about with this wisdom idea and with the course you're talking about, where the observable, the repeatable, the testable, if it's real, it can take the pressure kind of attitude to spirituality, which I think magic inclines people to, if you'll open that door up for yourself. There are other ways into that kind of spirituality. But that's really what we need right now. We need to move away from that book said so and into this is what I see squirrels doing. You know what I mean? We need to see I can see this happening in nature. Yeah.
Yeah. Or the book said it was going to be like this. Is that true?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Does it hold up?
Yeah, right. So not necessarily dismissing the book out of hand.
No.
Because I'm big on babies in bathwater too. I think we're in a moment where we have thrown out a lot of bathwater and fucked around and threw a whole bunch of babies out the window.
Whole bunch of babies went out. Yeah.
And I'm diving out after them. You know what I mean?
Zamboni's out there netting the babies, bringing them back in.
I'm saying, I'm doing my best. You know what I mean?
You're just saving babies.
The thing is, it looks like I'm jumping out the window. You know what I mean?
Right. It
looks like total lunacy. But it makes total sense to me. I'm like, oh, there's a baby in the water over there. And a lot of folks didn't even realize.
So I think your shape conversation is one that we've touched on here before and is really well explained in the course material too. It is that breaking of things because we've kind of been taught, or at least culture because our culture is so materialist in a lot of ways, it separates out spiritual components from things. And so it makes it sound like they're two different things a lot of times. And so that anything spiritual is a metaphor in an abstract sense and in a non-physical sense. And you're like, no, the physical is also a metaphor. These are all, it's the same thing. And encountering that can be really intense. I had a weird vision the other day of what am I seeking in terms of spirit interaction? What am I looking for? And I had this vision of myself as an old man holding a cup of coffee while looking out over snow, from my house, looking over a snowy field and talking to the spirit that is what arises when one holds a cup of coffee and looks out over a snowy field. The spirit of that event is the spirit I am talking to. And that is only producible in those circumstances. That's the only time you're going to find that spirit to talk to them. Right. Mm-hmm. And trying to explain what I mean by that and how that is the same thing as an angel is sometimes very tricky to get to people. But I think from my experience, that's what I mean. And that's a very real thing that you can observe and touch and interact with. You can be in that presence in a way that perhaps some concepts of angels as we have been sold them are less real. Do you know what I mean? Are less, less observable, right? That's a very observable angel, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So your shape conversation puts me in the same space of wait, what is the shape of this?
Yeah, and like, what does shape even mean? And then once you start noticing that it's shaped, then it's like everything is shaped, and then when everything is shaped, then nothing is, and it's like the whole. It gets really confusing. One time I was in college, and I was talking to the trombone player in my band at that time. He was also the horn section leader, and he and I were like good friends, but we were from completely different places. And so I was on some super he was a neuroscience dude. So he was you know, and like that was his, you know, science and spreadsheets and shit like that. And I'm like on some poetry and psychedelics type shit. And I remember just blowing past it one time and being like, well, obviously everything is a metaphor for everything else, but like but you can't just say that. And he was like, what are you talking? Everything is not everything else. Everything is like its own thing. And I was like, oh, there's no way to explain this. Like this is all vibes right now. And he just doesn't understand that he is also operating on vibes.
Yes. So. Yes. The good scientists, the good neuroscientists and everything else, because I had the pleasure of hanging out with quite a few of those types for a long time due to certain former matrimonial circumstances. And the good ones understand that it's a metaphor. Right. And that they're just whistling in the wind and doing their best, you know what I mean? And one of the best examples, the two examples that I love are that while we largely talk about 3, possibly 4 types of structures in the brain, we talk about synapses and neurons, and we talk about astrocytes and these other kind of like, you know, receptors and all this kind of stuff. Golgi and the guys who just started identifying that stuff, they identified like in the Cahal, they started identifying like 30. Do you know what I mean? We've just only been able to research like 3 or 4. So like when people talk about it, you know, they talk about it like these are the only things. But again, that's a map for the territory because they just can't talk about the other stuff. The other was I got to sit in on this neuroscience conference, and I got to see this thing where someone had done a representation of what happens in the brain as certain stimulus or like a thought basically was happening. And it was a representation of all the different structural changes that happen at once. And, you know, it's a model. It's not exact for anything. And it was sort of based on...
It was like, this is your brain on drugs.
Totally. Except what it was it looked like a forest. It looked like wind going through a forest. And I was like, is that what it really looks like? Or is wind going through the forest the only way we can think about what's happening here? But then I sort of rolled from that to like, wait, when the wind goes through the forest, is that the earth thinking? And so like I had to like, I'm like sitting under the desk, you know what I mean? Just like holding my head, you know, thinking about how many trees in my head or thinking about how many trees are in the world, thinking about trees. And I was like, oh, I need to take a nap.
For real.
But that metaphor ended up opening things up for Wyatt's mom, where she started really digging into the idea that like a single cause event in the brain is an untraceable concept. That like to say that like you think X, so a nerve, you know, an electrical signal fires, and that is the thing that makes a memory is entirely ludicrous. That it's a dynamically changing system at all times, you know. So the metaphor created the understanding, right? It and continues to do so, even though maybe it's not right. It just makes a thing real.
Yeah, well, that's the problem with shitty metaphors, is that they lead you in the wrong direction. And so it'll fuck your whole shit up from a place that you can't even necessarily describe, because it's such a foundational principle that is orienting your whole the flow that comes from that shape.
This is all fucked. This leads to a weird idea that I didn't think I was going to raise today, but I am curious what you're thinking about it. So one of the things I've said before is that over time, I've become less satisfied with argumentation as a way to win someone over. I like when we discuss things or when we kind of sharpen each other on edges or take different arguments, because what we're doing is collaborating in a similar vein to try to find trying to better answer. I'm not really trying to convince you. You're not really trying to convince me. We're trying to just throw some stuff and see where it goes. But if you're trying to convince somebody of something, I've come to the conclusion that seduction is really the main way to do this. You have to just sort of make what you have more attractive than what they have. Other than that, it doesn't really seem to work. But what do you think about the idea when someone is stuck in a bad metaphor, right? Like the metaphor they've chosen for life is making them brutal, mean, short-sighted, you know what I mean? Like, and you can see it. You're stuck in a metaphor. Like you're stuck in a thing. Mm-hmm. What do you think about how do we get out of being stuck in bad metaphors? How do we get out of, or how do we help other people out of being stuck with humility? Because we're all stuck in some bad metaphors. But like, how do we get past our bad metaphors? And is that what argument is about? Is that what? Can you argue someone out of a bad metaphor?
I don't know that you can argue someone else out of a bad metaphor, but I do think that a lot of the time when I am walking through the woods talking to myself, it takes the form of an argument. I'm trying to convince the other guy in my head of whatever I'm talking about, and that does a very good job of helping me to shape my thoughts. It helps me to direct my thoughts into a particular direction, and that helps me to understand more clearly what I'm trying to say or what my position is. And so I don't necessarily think that when you're arguing with another person, especially if they've already made some claims and have some entrenched positions that they now can't go back on because they would look like an idiot if they did, then like arguing in that situation doesn't actually convince people, but arguing with myself I have changed my mind on stuff. I have argued with myself and been like, fuck, it's the more uncomfortable thing that I wish it wasn't, I find myself doing that a lot. So, well, to the question of like, so how do we help move out of a bad metaphor and maybe into a better metaphor? First, I would say, okay, there are two things here. One is an example is probably warranted. So that, we can try to actually approach it and then see if we can make a rule out of what we actually did. And then the other thing is, I know you really fuck with Rory Sutherland, who is the king of narrative reframing.
Yes, I do love that shit. Yeah.
So I would probably lean in that direction. Like what are some ways that we can think, but like you have to be prepared for the narrative reframe, and it's the old how many psychiatrists does it take to change your mind? Well, only one, but the light bulb has to want to change a light bulb.
Yeah, exactly.
The light bulb has to want to change. All right. Whew. I'm glad I got one good joke off earlier. I'm losing all credibility as a cult of personality right now.
No, I think you're right about the narrative reframe as an invitational structure, right? Inviting someone to see something differently, offering them something. I'm coming to think that, and this is some thinking with Tai Chi stuff. You can tell when I'm doing my Tai Chi practice because I start to think about it more. Do you know what I mean? Like you can tell when I'm actually on my shit and not missing weeks. There's a thing that happens when you're doing push hands with somebody where your field becomes their field. You merge. And there's a neuroscience effect where like you become one person. This happens with dance too. If you're partner dancing with somebody, your brain assumes that their body is a part of your body. And this is very much to crib something from a place where a lot of babies get tossed out, from the old sayings of one senior Jesus Christ, the walking a mile in a man's shoes. You know what I mean? Like you kind of need to start from the other person's position. You need to be seeing, and without, you don't have to sacrifice who you are to do this, but to really get invested in what it is that motivates them and how did they get to this place, and really, really be in that same field and then offer a different thing from the point of view of that field. Which can be hard to do sometimes, can be very frustrating sometimes too. Some of these fields are pretty nasty. You know what I mean? Like it's not always, sunshine and rainbows.
This actually makes me think about the way that I often think about if we were, okay, so most folks would agree that we are in a moment of political societal crisis, right?
Sure.
At least escalating crisis.
Yeah.
And I tend to be on the team of like, well, do the thing that makes the most sense in wherever you are and this kind of stuff. But I sometimes spend what I sometimes think is undue attention trying to figure out the big picture problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
How to solve the big problem.
Yeah.
And
nobody's asking me, by the way, but I do.
Yeah, nobody's asking me at all. Right. As well, they shouldn't. I'm a lunatic. So I would throw out voter democracy if it were up to me. You know, we've talked about this before. So I don't. But I think about it anyway because I'm important to me. And so one of the things that I think about with that is values and incentive structures.
Yeah.
Right. So in the example you just gave, it's like you really got to walk a mile in a man's shoes, right? You got to like understand who that person is and how they came to their position because they have a set of values that matters to them, right?
Yeah.
And so when you are in a space where you're trying to offer them a reframe, you need to offer some value. You need to meet that need. Whatever need they're meeting with their position, you need to meet that need. And it just needs to be you need to reroute it so you can move it in a different direction. But that's going to be your move. You have to make sure that need gets met. And so this is what, like at the societal level, I always get lost in, like market forces and this kind of thing, market
right.
pressures. Do you ever get away from market pressures, or is there ever a way to, I don't know. Sometimes I think that everything ultimately is a marketplace. Like it's
yes.
It's just like all exchange at all times. We're the food chain, and just like the selective pressures and market pressures are ultimately the same thing. And so the process that drives evolution is the same process that drives markets.
Right.
And so if that's true, that you never really, then at least as a living organism, you never get out of selective pressure or markets. And as such, you really need to optimize the markets because it's all you got. You never get out of the market. So, like this is my beef with socialism and this kind of thing. Is like, well, I mean, my first beef with socialism is like, you trust the government this much to control everything? What are you talking about?
Have you been paying attention since the dawn of time? Have you been paying attention to how this goes?
You want a centralized authority. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because guys.
Right. This has never gone well.
It's never gone well.
Come on. And then so, and the other thing is like, well, so the true democracy is the free market economy. You know what I mean? Like nothing is more democratic than the free market. Now, I'm not saying that we have a free market, and I'm not necessarily saying that we should have a free market, because if you have a free market, then the tragedy of the commons happens, and then the rivers get fucked up, and I don't necessarily think that that's what we should do either. I'm not saying I know. I'm just saying that market dynamics are inherent to the thing, and we're not going to get away from that.
And is a democratic value. I think over time, it's diving more into anarchy, diving more into the belief in direct democracy, and trying to see what freedom really looks like. You end up at a place where people need to be able to exchange things on the terms that they set for each other. And once you fall to that place, you're like, oh, there shouldn't be an outside value. There should just be the value that people set for things between each other, right? Like once you're down that road, you're already deep into free market conversations. It's one of those, like, I really do hate to say hashtag not all capitalisms, right? Because it is annoying as fuck, and I get that. But when you come down to the level of like, if you made a painting and I want to pay you 15 cows for it and you're fucking down for the cows, like, who should tell you otherwise? You know what I mean? You should be free to do this. And so the other thing is that the market stuff allows for a non-voting part of democracy to happen. So it's a way that you can use whatever power and social capital you have to change the world based on your own views, opinions, and exercise of power.
And based on your own knowledge and expertise.
Yes,
right?
Totally.
You don't have to be if you are not college educated, but you know to shit out some tractors, then you can evaluate tractors really well. You can evaluate tractor parts really well, and you can evaluate the things that tractors are used for really well in ways that are better than most folks who are well-educated can. And so then the way that you spend your dollars on which tractors and which parts is an expression of your own free will. That is democracy. It's these tractors are the better ones. Make more of these tractors.
Right.
Here's the money. Make more of these ones. Fuck these other ones. They're not as good.
They're not as good.
These ones.
And as long as everyone has the opportunity to make different kinds of tractors, and that's not limited in some way, then then you're going to get to better options. The people will choose things that are better. I love some of the stories from the Russian communism stuff, because they were really throwing a lot of stuff out there against human nature, and it just was not working. You know what I mean? Just over and over again, people would choose freedom, their own personal choice, and their own capacity to do things over the good of the state. They just could not get people to do otherwise. And one of my favorites is they start trying to limit vodka, right? Because they're people are drinking too much, and it's a problem for the state. And Russians basically told them to go fuck themselves. We're going to drink whatever we want. We'll drink brake fluid if we can't get vodka. And so then they're okay, shit, well, we got to give them vodka because they're going to fucking drink all the brake fluid. We need the brake fluid for other shit. And so they started doing state-sponsored vodka. So rather than one region being really good at vodka, they start blending the bottles together and stuff. Mm-hmm. All the vodka's shitty. Nobody likes the vodka. Vodka sucks. A black market immediately occurs, right? Right off the bat. Uncle so-and-so, Uncle Vanya's making his fucking hooch in the backyard, and everybody likes that better, so they're going to that. State hates this, so they then decide they're going to let individual plants mark that they made the vodka, right? They're sort of let people tell this out. Then the problem comes that all of a sudden people will only buy vodka from the good plants. They won't buy the vodka that's being made in the shitty plants. And so you just see it happening again and again. And you end up back at the point you started at, where people are Jim makes great vodka, and I want to give Jim money for his fucking vodka so I can have some. This is just, it's just you can come up with a lot of theories about it, but it just repeats the shape of this. Mm-hmm. Reflects a part of humanness, right? Humans do this. This is a shape we take, Right. Yeah. And that's, that is ultimately one of the main pieces of the course is a lot of what we do also with divination and such is by we need a good way to navigate the field of information. We basically exist in the land of information. And so we're just trying to figure out what's going on at all times. And so if we can get a good idea as to what shape we are actually living in, then that will help us to move forward more effectively. And it'll help us to decide which way forward fucking is, just because we have a better idea of what's going on. And so, this week's excerpt actually is about how we can get more information. So here's an excerpt from Which Way to Wisdom, new course out now.
Okay, ladies, now let's get information. Information is the thing that gives the world shape. Literally, that is what that word means. Formation, to form a thing is to make it have a certain kind of shape, right? And so information, or the thing that informs, is the stuff that gives you shape. Now, that is an extremely circular definition that just like doesn't actually go anywhere until you remember that shape is the underlying metaphor for all of the world at large. Like the world that we live in is the world of forms. It's the world of shape. And shape is the underlying metaphor that just like everything that happens in the world happens as a result of the shape of the object and its relationship to other objects which are shaped in certain ways, right? And as such, then we can use information, we can use data to understand what is in the world and to let that help us to figure out how the world functions. So when you're gathering information, the purpose of gathering that information is to shape your predictive engine, or sometimes you'll hear me call that a model as well. This is a fundamental piece of how information works. Like what you're already doing, and you've been doing this your whole life. Like the true way is unknowable. We've talked about that for a while, but it is observable, and you can construct a model based on the observation that you have made. You can construct a predictive engine based on what you have observed in the world. When you were a baby, probably you knocked stuff off of your tray a bunch of times, and you witnessed how if you knocked stuff off the tray, then it would fall down. But you didn't know that was going to happen until you tried it a bunch of times. You had to try it and observe, oh, shit falls down if I knock it off the tray. Interesting, right? Then that begins to shape your predictive engine about how the world functions. Well, maybe if I knock stuff off the tray on this side, then it's also going to fall down. Or maybe if I drop it out of my hand, then it's also going to fall down, right? And then that helps you to understand the world that you live in all the time. This is how you learn to walk. This is how you learn to talk. This is how you learn to exist in the world, is by generating a predictive model that then takes you on the journey that you're going to go down. So like if you want to throw a ball, then you have a concept in your mind of how a ball, especially a ball, like imagine a baseball, for example, right? That is a certain size and shape. That is a certain weight. That is a certain, it's got a certain feel in your hand, right? And then, so if you were to throw it, then it would behave in a certain way, and it would behave in a different way than if you had a balloon in your hand and tried to throw that, or if you had a napkin and tried to throw that. Like these things are going to be, and the napkin is going to be different than if you balled the napkin up and then tried to throw it at that point, right? So if you've imagined how each of these things would go, then it's because you have a predictive engine in your head that's like, oh, I have a model of how stuff actually works. And so it'll go kind of like this, right? And so you're never going to get 100% accuracy on your predictive engine. You just don't have the capacity to process all of the necessary information that it would take to get you to 100% accuracy on how stuff goes. But you can do pretty good, and pretty good will get you a pretty long way, especially if you continue to refine your model over time. What you're going to do here is you're going to generate your model, which is going to basically consist of if things are in this shape, then this flow will result from that shape. Or if we have these conditions present, then the flow that comes from that, the outcomes that come out from those conditions will be in this certain kind of form, right? So that's like how your predictive model is going to go all ways. If I've got a baseball in my hand and I throw it with this kind of vigor or force, then it's going to have this kind of effect on the environment. This is going to be the outcome of that, right? And that is a super technical way of understanding what you already knew intuitively, right? This is going to be true about all of the information that you take in. You're going to be working on, okay, so if this is the way that things are shaped, then then the flow that comes out of that is going to be in that shape, right? And so then when we do that across time, and you're always going to do this across time, right? You're always going to sort of like start in a certain condition and stuff is going to happen to it, and then it's going to flow out from that. But when you do that, then what you've really constructed is a story or narrative that's always going to be like when you include time, then you're always going to have a narrative of it started this way and it moved into that thing. It's always going to move along a certain kind of narrative storyline. And so that is the only way that humans can understand things. I am not sure that it is limited to humans. I think that this is likely... I think that the reason that humans have developed story as a way of understanding things is because that is inherent in the world. I can't prove that, and so I'm not going to die on that hill, but I think that's what's going on. And I think that that is why you can use stories to shape the world around you, even if it is not in a necessarily human context. You can involve other spirits and beings in that. And you can invoke a story, and story will make sense still, because story exists in that sort of metaphorical level. However, I do know that no matter if that's true or not, humans, which is where we are, we're in human bodies at this point, then humans can only understand things in the form of story and narrative. If this, then that. And so So we're always going to sort of come back to what is the story, what is the narrative, and what is the shape that causes, or what is the shape that leads to a certain kind of flow. Causation is not well understood by humans. We don't really understand why things happen the way that they do, but we can understand that a certain shape will lead to a certain flow or outcome, right? And so whenever we're talking about someone who is smart, or we're talking about smartness, then that is in relationship to predictive accuracy. That is in relationship to the model accurately predicting the outcomes. That's what smart is. So with this in mind, it's good to remember that nobody does better than about 70%. You just don't there's going to be time, there's going to be wind that you didn't think about when you were throwing the ball or the napkin or something like that. It's going to sometimes come out of your hand in a way that you didn't predict exactly, because even the motion of your body isn't 100% the way that you thought it was going to go in your mind. And like, there's always going to be stuff, and just stuff you didn't think about. There's a thing on the side of the ball that's going to like make it be a little bit lopsided, and it's, there's always going to be stuff, right? And you can refine your knowledge so that you get better and better. But when it comes to predicting future outcomes, nobody does better than 70%. So try to get up to 70%. A lot of people do way worse than 70%. You can get that good. You can get as smart as 70% accuracy in your predictive model. Try to get that good with it. And in order to do that, as always, one of the things that we always come back to in this course is a certain amount of humility. Because you are just a small person. There's a whole wide world out here, but I'm just one person. And so I know that I do not have the capacity to know all of the things. Even in my small static room, I'll be looking at the floor and not the wall, or the wall and not the floor. I can't do both of those things at the same time, and I can't process all of that. Doesn't even take into account the countertops, or you know what I mean? Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff in the room that I can't pay attention to all at the one time. And as such, then that means that there's a whole bunch of stuff that I don't know. And I'm going to miss a bunch. If 70% is where the very smartest of the people get to about 70% accuracy, then I'm probably somewhere around like 45% or something like that, right? That means I'm missing more than I'm hitting. And that is hard on my little ego. It's hard on my heart, right? But it's really good to remember that. And, you know, I heard Tom Bilyeu say that there's one belief that matters, and it is that I know that I can learn things and do better next time, right? I don't necessarily need to tie my self-worth to what I know and how good my predictive model is. Rather, I can tie my self-worth to my ability to become better over time. This is really important. This is really, really important when you are navigating an information environment. The main thing is to remember that I don't know everything, but I can learn things. And I can learn things by taking in information with the intention of improving my predictive model. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to start from a kind of foundational place and get your first principles in order. You want to know what you know, and you need to be able to justify the things that you think you know. Now, I just spent a bunch of time talking about how you don't actually know anything and how you're going to miss a bunch of times, right? But if you are hitting consistently in a certain area, then it's worth being like, okay, my predictions are pretty, like, if I'm so certain right now that things are going to fall downward, right? That is a real good place to start. If what you need to do is you need to move your body around, then knowing that stuff falls down, that's a strong first principle. And so then we're going to use that as a foundational concept in order to build off of that and do other things. If you want to run, jump, climb things, all of that, right? Like, and we all did this as children, right? So like we got a lot of that in, you know, and had to fall a whole bunch of times. How many times did I think I had it down and then tripped on the curb and then messed my whole skin, my knees, my elbows, and my hands up and all that? How many times did I have to go through that, right? But in doing that, then now I'm much nicer with curbs.
I think a better way to think with this idea is axioms. So an axiom is metaphorical in its nature. And because it's metaphorical, because it's an image-based thing, then that gives you the shape that stuff will follow. And because the way is always the way, the world always follows the same way, no matter what circumstance, or, you know, like the rules are always the same over time in the world, then something like an axiom rather than a first principle can give us some important clues as to how to go about thinking with structuring good and new ideas and such, as well as providing appropriate foundations without getting too married to a certain factual statement. You know, so an axiom like 6 to 1, half dozen the other, right? That gives you a shape that shows you that we don't necessarily have to call things the same thing, but we can all, right? Like, you understand what this axiom is trying to tell you, but it says it in this metaphorical kind of way. And because it's couched in metaphor, then you can use that image to show you lots of different ways that things might go. So it leans closer to the archetypal, and as a result of that, tolerates the variability of the myriad forms that actually exist in the world much better than any declarative statement might. Even down to gravity makes stuff fall down. Like, is there a better way to describe that metaphorically so that we can extrapolate across time in many different instantiations?
Bam.
Okay. So, Brian, what do you think about
So I love a lot of this, but one of the first things I love is, and we talked about this a little bit before, is how cute that opening with the Beyonce song is. I love that. I also really love it because, and I want to come back to the divination thing we were just talking about, because there's a lot there that I think you and I could particularly scoop into. But I love that she really was laying out how the word works for people in a very straightforward way. And, you know, the idea that like information is a process of making shapes. We are putting things in shapes to understand what is happening around us. And that that formation, making a thing, making a shape is this much more active process when it comes to information than I think people give credit to. And I think that's something I really enjoy about this way of thinking, that like, I think a lot of times people think of themselves as receiving information, right? Or it's just something they take in. And sure, you can take whole cloth someone else's formation of an idea, and you can just slot it in and hope it works and do the thing. But you are, even in doing that, you are making a world, you are making a structure that you are going to believe in and buy into, and that will affect how things work, rather than just like it lays on top, you know what I mean? Like it just feeds into you, and it's something you can pick up or let go, or, you know, it's like drinking water. You're like, no, it's not like drinking water. It's like making a cup, you know, like it's a different process.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a little like drinking water if I am the cup, right?
Sure. You know? Yeah. If you make of thyself a cup, Zamboni, to receive now I feel like we're talking about that Jesus thing where he's at the well with the Samaritan woman. He's like, oh, maybe I was talking about Eddie Murphy and the Golden Child. This is amazing. This is an amazing cross-cultural moment. You explain yours, and then I'll explain mine.
Well, so at the end, he's like in this labyrinth, and he's like trying to get the baby, and he's solving a riddle, and he like has this water, and he can't spill any of the water, and so like don't let any drops fall, and he's like, how am I going to do this? And he's got to jump over the shit, and he's like, oh, I have to drink the water, and then I drink the water, and then now he can go through, and he gets the baby, and he comes out, and he wins the day.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was talking about that. When Christ is meeting the Samaritan woman at the well, and he tells her that he's going to give her living water, right? Like he's gonna fill her with living water, which I read a book as a kid that turned that into a dirty joke, and I have never been able to get that out of my head ever since. The idea of Jesus being like, baby, I'll give you some living water if you want some living water. I know this is your fifth husband. I'm like, don't hold out on me. Like, I know what you're after, you know, I can give it for you. And like, once you have that metaphor in your head, now it can never be unseen. So there you go.
You know, I'm never mad at a slutty Jesus.
No, man, slutty Jesus is the best Jesus. Like,
right. I feel like we've got a lot to learn from slutty Jesus. In this day and age,
we're laughing about this. We're laughing about this, but I really think slutty Jesus is important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I say wild, outlandish shit, but I only say things that I mean.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the things that I stand by. I live strong on that. Like because I really believe strongly in the truth. And like sometimes I say sarcastic shit and I say jokes and stuff like that, but I really like. I go hard for honesty, and if I said a thing, I'm 10 toes down on it. Yeah. And I'm for the most part am trying to die on the hill that I'm on. You know what I mean? Like I mean it every time.
So let's take for a second the difference in the story patterns or the information patterns of unslutty and slutty Jesus. Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. So slutty Jesus hangs out with a bunch of prostitutes, a bunch of folks, likes women a lot. Mm-hmm. Slutty Jesus is always propping women up and not just fucking them. Like, I'm gonna be honest, like they're his students. They're like Mary and Martha and the Magdalene. Like these are top rank people that Jesus is paying attention to. Now, personally, I like bisexual slutty Jesus, so he's also hanging out with his dudes, doing his stuff in the desert, doing his thing. But it's a Jesus that's committed to life, to people, to fellowship, to the bond that runs between people, the living force between everybody. Like he's a Slutty in the best way. You know what I mean? Like, people are happy that Jesus is slutty. And this is the kind of guy Jesus is, right? Unslutty Jesus, I'll steel man one piece. It gives you the idea that Jesus loves people regardless of sexual stuff. You know what I mean? Like, Jesus is into everybody. Like, you know, and that there's a power there for sure. But it also is something where they're like, well, why, you know, people have taken unslutty Jesus, which is the one we largely get, and been like, why are you talking to that woman? What purpose could she have if you are unslutty? And you're like, I don't know, maybe she's got good ideas. But, they use unslutty Jesus to pull away from life, to create a sort of aesthetic idea that like people should be, that the body is trash and that you should be pulling away from the body. You get disembodied very fast. You get into all the craziness of Christian purity culture and all this sort of, like, it all goes from the idea that, like, well, if you want to be like anybody, you should be like Jesus, and Jesus wasn't fucking everybody in town. And, you know, you're like, well, but what if he was? You know, it starts to change the picture.
Yeah. You know, it, one of the main things with this course is the restoration of agency, right? It's very much about, and I say this over and over and over in the course, is like, don't take it from me, I don't fucking know. But here are some questions that are worth asking, right? I don't have answers, but I have some pretty good questions. And so if we can follow some lines of inquiry, then maybe we can learn some things about that. And you don't have to take my lines of inquiry. No. You can learn the process of inquiring and then get yourself a deck of cards for $4.99 at Walgreens and and you're off to the races with it, right? It's very much about the restoration of agency. Like, this is part of the reason why I love psychedelics, psychedelic medicine, because we, you know, and there, so if we start out with like the Roman Catholicism, then it's, you know, the Bible is in Latin and the priests are like, trust me, this is what it says. You know what I mean?
Is this?
And then Martin Luther is like, hold on a minute. I might like to read that myself. And so then we get Protestantism and we get all of literacy in the Anglophone world, basically. Yep. And so everybody gets to read the book, but it's still this sense of like, well, the book says what God is, and so you believe what the book says. And then so that is more democratic than the Roman Catholicism was. Yeah. But it's still centralized bottleneck through the book, whereas psychedelic medicine gives you your own primary experience of the divine. I experienced the divine in a way that spoke directly to me and felt feelings in my body that no one else could feel. And so I had a direct experience that others didn't have, and others who have taken psychedelic medicines or, you know, whirling dervishes and stuff like this also, like they get a primary experience of the divine, right? Yep. So that's one of the things that I think is really important, especially in this moment where we don't necessarily have a universal set of values. Now, in the case of promoting an unslutty Jesus, that is for the most part a dereliction of one's own agency. It's the sense that maybe it's even a recognition of my own power, in the same way that like Catholics really believe in witchcraft. They think it's a real thing, and they think you shouldn't do it because it will work. Right? Yeah. It's that sort of vibe where it's like, I am actually very powerful and I can fuck everything up. And so don't let me touch anything and put me in this box. Let me follow the rules. What are the rules? Let's be very rigid about the rules. And so because I need these guardrails, versus slutty Jesus, who is like, yeah, man, there's a lot we should probably do things in ways that are compassionate and joyful and that are pro-social and all this kind of thing. But like, we also live in bodies, and we can channel some of this energy and we can work together. And this is actually a thing that can bring us together in this kind of thing. I'm actually reminded of Zen, the story where there's two monks. There's the teacher and the student, and they're walking. and they find a woman by the side of the road, and she can't get across the ravine.
I love this story. Yeah.
They are these guys. They're very pious, and they are forbidden to touch women. And so the student is like, "Sorry, bitch," and keeps it pushing. and the teacher was like, "All right, I got it," and like throws her over his shoulder, jumps the ravine because he's on that Shaolin shit, and so he's makes it all the way across.
He's good. Those thighs are steel. Yeah.
Right. And he puts it down, and they keep going, and the student is just gobsmacked. He's like, "What?" the whole time. And so then they get over to the inn that they're gonna stay in at night, and they in there and they chilling. And so it gets to late night, and the student's like, "I cannot take this anymore, master. We are not supposed to be touching women out here. How did you throw her over your shoulder like this?" And he says, and the teacher says to the student, "I left her by the side of the road. You are still carrying her."
Yeah. I love this story. I know I have a slightly different version that's my favorite, but the tagline's the same. I love who is still touching this woman, who is still carrying this woman. Mm-hmm. Right. What does it mean to be obsessed with this? Right? Like, what does it mean to be touched? Yeah.
And so Slutty Jesus is willing to put her down at the end of the night, whereas unslutty Jesus.
Yeah, Slutty Jesus is willing to put her down at the end of the night. See, that's the thing. That's the difference between he's laying her down. He's got it all set. Yeah, that's the difference.
Yeah, Slutty Jesus is laying her down for sure. That's what's up. Yeah. Slutty Jesus is on a little bit of that love him and leave him shit. You know what I mean?
A little bit. Yeah. You gotta admit, there's a little bit of that in the Slutty Jesus.
Turn off the Mac, because you know that I'll be back. Is that what the Easter Sunday was about?
I think so. Yeah. He's like, no. I mean, listen. He looked around. He's like talking to the Romans. He's like, I gotta get out of town, guys.
Right.
If you could set up like a big spectacle where everybody knows I'm dead and I'm moving to the next town, that would be real. He's like, listen, Pontius, my man, you gotta set me up with something really good.
Can you throw me in the squad car and put me in and drive me through the neighborhood? Don't let everybody see it.
Yep.
I'm not available. Ain't nothing I can do. Oh no. Oh,
but I also love
you forsaken me.
But I also love that Slutty Jesus can't stay gone. Do you know what I mean? He's like, I'm back.
Yeah, well, listen, I know what it is sometimes. I know how you get tired after a little while. You know what I mean? And I need a power nap. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's got to recharge a little bit, and need a couple days to wander the earth, and but like this particular bit of blasphemy is fantastic.
Yeah, look.
Because it's not actually blasphemy. That's the thing. It's not blasphemy. It's a really fun way to think about it. Have you
This is among the most faithful of the conversations we possibly could be having.
Yes, actually, yes, it really is. There's a book that I really enjoyed in college, and I don't know how well it holds up now. It was funny to me at the time, but it's a book called Lamb, and it's the Gospel according to Biff, Jesus' childhood friend. And yeah, it's fun, man. It's a fun book.
That author also wrote one about a jester, right?
Yeah, he did. I can try to remember that. Yeah.
I remember those books also. I remember them being hilarious. They were so funny.
There's a great bit where Jesus and Lamb and Biff go to like a Zen monastery or like a Shaolin monastery, and they're like learning to like sit and meditate. and Jesus is reaching all different kinds of enlightenment, and he's just like, you know what, man, I can't be in this monastery all the time. I got to go out and be among the people, you know, like this isn't my path. And Biff spends the whole time learning how to orgasm without touching himself. Like that's the Zen attainment he gets in the thing. But it comes back like multiple times through the thing. He's like, whatever, I'm just gonna sit by myself and meditate. And like, I just love that it becomes a theme of the whole book. And it's like, it's this dumb sophomoric thing, but also like, dude, I don't know, man. That might be a better way to spend your time. Like if you're just sitting there. I mean,
there's a reason why I champion Taoism so tough. Yeah. This course, I like Taoism.
I like Taoism. It's got some good stuff. Oh man, but it's, you know, and again, to your point, whether people like this or not. Whether you're down with Slutty Jesus or not, taking the time to pull this out, look at this shape, see what it says, think about it, have some humor, look around, ask some questions about what would it be like if we lived in a world of Slutty Jesusness, you know, valuable. It's valuable to sit down and do. This is how you get. I'm gonna endanger my own massive humility, my great and unending and very, very important humility, by saying that this is how you get wise. You get wise by pulling things apart and questioning your own shit and looking at it again and again and deciding like and trying to get better at it. Like just trying to like have a better answer the next time the question comes up. You know. And
yeah, I mean, that's the name of the course, right? Which way to wisdom? It's a question. It's like, which is the way to wisdom? How do we get to wisdom? Is it through Slutty Jesus? Maybe. You know? Maybe
I recommend it.
Let's take that a little bit, you know? But in order to do that, we're going to need to get better at understanding the information that comes in. So that means that we're going to need to be able to read the text, or hear the stories, or all of these kinds of things, and figure out what is being said.
Yeah. We're circling back to the divination thing again for a second here. One of the reasons I love geomancy is that there's lots of ways you can think about how it works, but one way it does work is it gives you 256 human patterns that exist. And I would actually say more than human. It gives you 256 universal patterns. These circumstances arise in the universe. And so it gives you these to apply to a question. So that when you're like, here's what the little scratches and dots say, you then are forced to take that and look at the question you asked and say, does this story fit? Or what would it look like if this story did fit? Or what, you know, like, I think there's actually more going on there, but, you know, but yeah, here's a story. What does that do to what you, to what's going on with you? So, you know,
and that's ultimately the way that I approach astrology also. Yeah. Is I tell a story with it. You know, I treat I'm going to give you an astrology from the ground up speed run. I treat the planets as characters in a story. The zodiac sign is the setting. It's the place wherein the story happens. And then the aspects are the other characters in the story who interact with our hero in whatever ways that they do. And that tells you, and then the houses will tell you in what area of life we're going to be looking for this thing. So what kinds of topics are going to be coming up in this story. And so then given those things, let's tell a story here and see how that story ends up. And then that can give us some insight as to what happens in the life of the native.
You had a good, I really enjoyed your reading, if you don't know, Zamboni does daily readings on, you know, daily astrology, like sort of like reports, readings, whatever you want to call them for the day, which you can find on YouTube or Instagram or other fine TikToks or things of this nature, I presume. But today's was really interesting because you were talking about the way the moon was moving and how it was aspecting different features as it was sort of moving through the day. And that in the morning today, we had a very cooperative moon. We had a moon that was good for like getting people together, thinking things out, talking, you know, this kind of like
conference.
What do you say? Launch the course? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But this sort of conference room moon, you know what I mean? Like this sort of thing. But that later in the day, the moon was in some, you can correct me, but in some kind of aspect with Scorpio. Right? It was moving and it was having this thing going on. And that was moving to the idea of sort of like a getting things done, aspect. And so that you could tell this story of like, circle the wagons in the morning, get out your chore list, write it all out, figure out what you're going to do for the day. And then in the afternoon, dive into, what you're actually going to get done. Start shooting your arrows at what you want to get accomplished, move forward. Might not be pretty, but we're executing on tasks, at this point in time, we're moving forward. That's a really useful set of stories for framing your day. And it's a useful set of stories, not just because those are good principles generally, but also because, like, hey, the flow of the whole world, people are going to be feeling this kind of way because of what's happening. You can get into the shape of that. Now, if you ignore that story and you're wrong, right? Mm-hmm. If you're wrong and you're thinking like, no, Zamboni's wrong, I'm not taking that story in, but you're feeling friction all morning while you're trying to do stuff and everybody else is like, I don't know, let's take some notes. You're going to be starting to feel crazy. Like it's going to mess you up. So astrology as an observable thing that provides a predictive value that you can then use as a metaphor storytelling device to understand the day, to make a story of. Because we also talk about that in that clip, how we work in linear time, right? And that we're going to be making a story out of these aspects into a linear structure. That if you can align yourself with that, you're going to just have an easier time of it. You're not trying to push the river, So I found that very instructive today, actually, and in full transparency, put that in play today and saw really good effects from it. I literally called a meeting that wasn't on the books to have people set up their day and organize shit and in the timing, and then let people go and do stuff in the afternoon. And I had both the people I was working with were like, "Man, today was so easy. Things were so good." Oh, yeah. And I was like, yeah, because I'm using witchcraft.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you can use witchcraft and divination to get results that are better than chance, then that improves your life outcomes. And so do the magic because it improves your life outcomes. That's the whole point.
Yeah. And we get there through story. Another thing that I'm really digging Lucifer Praxis. So that's one reason I'm talking about Peter Gray all the time. I think it's actually a really great book. Nobody needs me to say people should get it because everyone's going to buy it. But like, it's a really great grimoire. But it has these little moments in it where he's talking out this same kind of stuff. And he's, it's through the lens of working with the Watchers. But he talks about how like, working with the Watchers is a matter of telling stories, right? That's how you do it. That's how you make this magic, is through the historiola, is through telling stories, is doing this kind of thing. And I was having a meeting with Jess Waters this morning, and she was like, well, that's how everything works, which is the point. Like, yay, Peter, but also that's how everything works, right?
Totally.
And it's really good to see how this works out. I'm going to give a little spoiler from the book. Something I think he does is really cool that I wish more magicians would do, which is he lays out a PGM, the Greek magical papyri spell. So it's this Greco-Egyptian spell. It requires you to have a hawk's head. It's got all this crazy shit in it. You have to have something blessed by a priest of Anubis. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right, sure.
Oh, hold on. Lost my microphone for a second here.
Uh-oh.
Hold on. Just check. Talking about angels.
Can you guess who's not a priest of Anubis?
Me. How's it sound?
There you go. Yeah, you're back.
So he's like, all right, you gotta have something blessed by Isis. You have to have a priest of Anubis kit, and you gotta have a hawk's head, and then the outcome of the ritual is that a hawk flies over you and drops a stone for you to use.
Huh.
And he adds a footnote where he's like, this is how I think, this is how I deal with this. This is a magician. This is how I deal with this. He's like, pick a festival of Isis's, dedicate something to her on that day, right? Do a ritual for Anubis, bless the cloth that you're going to need. You have to be your own priest of Anubis today. You got to do that. You're not going to find one running around. So
Right.
He's like, no one has a fucking hawk's head, but hawks are sacred to Horus. So make a Horus idol and bless that and everything else. And then take the head of the idol and bring that to the thing. You know what I mean? Like, do that. And he's like, he's actually very like sarcastic about it. He's like, and you know, maybe hawks drop things for you all the time, but it doesn't happen in my house. So make the stone that the hawk is supposed to drop yourself, so that it's there, and then you drop it. And you know, he's like, yeah, you should try to envision, or in the reality, like if you see a hawk while you're doing that out in space, that's pretty great. If you only can do it in vision in your own mind, like try to be honest about whether you feel like you got blessed by the hawk or not. You know, in that, he's like, that's part of what the magic is. But it's really great to see somebody lay out what the magic is really like, right? Mm-hmm. Not just be like, oh yeah, man, hawks drop shit on me all day, like, because I'm a fucking great magician. That's how you know. It's a real, that story of how you do it opens up gates for doing the actual magic, right? Which is something that I think is also very present in what you're doing in the course. You're talking about a lot of things that are like, you can do this. Like it's not like, oh, manifest your greatest dreams. It's like, okay, well, what the fuck does that even mean? How do you step by step go through creating things? How do you organize shit? How do you understand what divination stories are you trying to tell, you know, in order to get where you want to go? Like these, and you give it, you know, you open it up for people to have their own opinions, and they should be generating their own stuff, but you give examples of what you mean by this, which I think is something that's really useful in how we tell the stories that make this stuff work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, I wanted to, when I first started practicing astrology publicly, and I like launched my Patreon and all that, it, like, my goal was to take the insights that I could derive from astrology and make them available to everyday people.
Yeah.
You know, just like generate some understanding, because I have a talent for it that is not necessarily super common. You know, like I can look at an astrology chart, or, you know, a set of symbols. I can look at some cards and be like, oh, here's the story that's being told there, you know. And to me, it comes very intuitively, but for a lot of folks, it's not as intuitive as that. And so my whole thing has been, especially since psychedelics are such an important part of my process, you know, it's very much about like, how can I facilitate? So like, this is, I don't want to be the cult of personality, right? This is not about me channeling the divine and telling you what's up. How can I facilitate your touching the divine, your damn self?
Yeah.
You know, it's about the restoration of agency. If you can do it for yourself, given some steps, right? Like, you're going to need to be taught how to do it. You're going to need to like run down some steps in order to get it done, but it doesn't have to go through me. I'm just showing you how to do it, you know, but what I really want is for widespread people, everyday people, to be able to do it.
What do you think about the concept of holding space? So like in a situation where you're maybe trip sitting, or you're creating, you know, what does it mean to you? Could we hear that as an alternative phrase to like cult of personality or stuff? You're like, I'm holding space for this, or I'm, you know, and I think the term is probably overused, but there's some value there too. So how would you think about that kind of concept of like facilitating the psychedelic experience or holding space for, you know, how do you think with that kind of stuff?
Well, so the way that I would think about it is when you're holding space, you are creating boundaries inside this space, then the divine drama can take place. And outside of this space, we're not worried about what's going on out there, and we're just going to stay inside here until the ritual is done. And so it's bounded in time and it's bounded in space, right? And so when you asked that question, the story that came to my head was one time I was in the ayahuasca, in the throes of ayahuasca. And it was so intense, and I was deeply uncomfortable. And there were like bees that were under, like they were like on the rooftop, but they were on the underside of the rooftop, and they were buzzing so loudly. They were just buzzing my whole body so painfully loudly, and it was just so intense. And I lost most of my motor function during that time, but then I heard a thud, and I looked up, and Margaret had fallen out of her hammock. And so the thing about Margaret is that she does kung fu and shit. And so in the last one, so sometimes when you drink ayahuasca, then a person will go crazy and they will like kick and scream, and it'll be wild, right? So that happened to her at the last ceremony, and she do kung fu and shit. So when she's kicking, these kicks are not a game. This is
right. Yeah, some serious
deal out here. You know what I mean? It took 4 of us to get on top of her and be like, "Hey,
it's some Bruce Lee shit. Some Bruce Lee shit going down over there."
Yeah. It was wild. But, okay, so 4 of us had jumped on top of her, and I was the one that was up closest to her head. And so when she came to, she saw me, and she was like touched by how much we cared for her, right?
Oh, yeah.
Very cute. Very, very cute. Yeah. So I saw her fall down, or I heard her fall, and then looked up and saw her and was like, she be all right on the ground.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm going through it. I'm feeling all the feelings, and I'm getting buzzed out of my damn body and all this. But she is not content with that. So she's flailing a little bit. She's also in a sleeping bag. So she's flopping. She's doing a lot of flopping around. You know what I mean? And I saw her flop over into the bush. She was like, there was a bush next to the structure, and I saw her flop in there. And not that long ago, like a snake had come into the campfire and the whole thing. And so I was like, all right, this ain't gonna work. I can't leave her in this bush. So I went over and I was like, Margaret, hi. Yes, hi, Margaret. Hi. We can't do this bush.
Yeah.
We gotta go back. And she saw me again, and she got that same look on her face. She was like, okay. And she like inchwormed back over to her hammock. She just laid out under the hammock for the rest of the night. And so, for one reason or another, that story wanted to be told tonight. But
it's a good one, though.
Holding space, right? So,
yeah. No, it's a good one. It's a good one, though. Like, it's a good story about how you hold space, right?
Yeah, it's about boundaries. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so So the way that I try to approach a lot of times, and this is how I do it in readings and stuff also, is I try to show up with a certain amount of tenderness. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times, I learned this back when I was an herbalist. Like, if people are coming to the magic and witchcraft, it's because nothing else is working.
Right.
And so a lot of times this will be the 6th, 7th person that they come to, and nobody's working. And so it's like, it's your turn, dog. Give it a shot. You know what I mean? And so they're feeling pretty hopeless about shit. And so there's a certain amount of like, we're just going to be tender in this space that I really try to. And so one of my favorite principles, especially, I don't know, like for maleness, I don't know necessarily that it applies to maleness, but I think of it in myself a lot, and I learned it from male people, is gentle but firm.
Yeah.
And so we can maintain this tenderness, but you're not going over there into the bush. No. And I know that you're struggling with motor function right now and all this, and I don't care about that. You're going to come back over here because you're not going to trip into this bush and then fuck around and get whoever lives in that bush stays over in that bush, and that's not for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we're going to be firm about this boundary because you have crossed it and you need to come back in here. But I love you so much. Thank you so much for coming back in here.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I love that idea of the tenderness of it, and And I think that tenderness is a part of I think the more appropriate wisdom sharer, whatever we want, magician path, whatever, initiator, whatever we want to talk about here, where we're like, hey man, I've done this sort of shit. I too have wandered into a bush that I should not have wandered into. Right. And I'm telling you, this isn't going to get you where you want to go. This bush is not the way, and you can find your own way back here in the zone. This is where we're doing it. Please come back into the party. There's always that one friend at a party who decides they're going to go rogue and like end up in somebody else's backyard. You know what I mean? Sure. Drunk. And you're like, man, this is not our swimming pool. We're not going to do this. Man. The other thing, the reason I like that story, by the way, and to talk about tenderness is Marissa and I were doing a little magic this morning. And we were talking about how fun magic is as a path, how fun this kind of thing is. And I was thinking about how much more fun church would be if everybody wasn't waiting to get to the lunch and was instead, trying to help Margaret out of the bush. Like it's, there's a certain amount of like, I think sometimes it can feel very serious and, you are dealing with big things, big questions, big forces, all this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's fun to break out a pack of cards, man. It's fun to try to figure out where the moon is. It's fun to throw some weird dice and try to guess what's happening to your friends across the country. You know what I mean? Like this is fun in a way that, and I think it's intentionally so. Like we like games, we like chance, we like stories. Mm-hmm. We like getting into this. It's pleasurable. And so the things that please us, that feel good to us, that are fun, that's a good teacher. A good teacher is fun and pleasurable. So you should, this is some real slutty Jesus shit. You know what I mean? Like get in there and have a good time with it, And whenever I see a magician taking themselves too seriously, I highly suspect they're off on their own shit. They're not really on the way. Do you know what I mean? I highly suspect that like
they got high on their own supply.
A spirit's got them. You know what I mean? Like and like listen, we've all been there. I'm not trying to say I'm innocent of that, but but there's a great thing in the old Pete Carroll Chaos books talking about laughter being the best banishing, and it's real good for spirits. It's also real good for your own stupid opinions that you have decided are correct. Yeah. But there's also just this element of like, let's have an adventure. Let's do something fun. Let's, you're sitting all around on a Saturday. Let's summon a demon. We got nothing better to do with our time. Let's see what we can do. You know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily recommend that. There's angels and shit. Yeah, get the Ouija board out. Like, I
don't know about that.
Right on Halloween, in a haunted, in a lunatic asylum if possible. You know what I mean? Like get some. No, I actually don't think that just cracking yourself open is the right way to do it. But I do think there's something fun about like having adventure with stuff. Like the wisdom is not necessarily a path of doing nothing. It's a path of having a lot of adventures and having a lot of fun.
Yeah. And that'll depend on who you ask. But definitely, I think that there is definitely wisdom in the adventuresome path. And the thing about the adventure path is that it is full of danger.
Yeah,
so
it is
and
full
that's
of
part
danger.
of what the fun is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you're like riding that wave and you might fall off, and because there's been a couple of times recently when I have done some magic around some relationship stuff, and like I felt really good about the magic, and I ended up in places that I didn't want to be, and
yeah.
So the magic felt really meaningful. You know what I mean? It felt like I got that pleasurable feeling from the magic, but I also fell off, and like maybe there's wisdom to be had here. In 10 years I'm gonna look back and I'll be like, yes, I remember that I learned this great truth, chop cherry water. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know. Like, so I definitely am not preaching some kind of path that keeps you safe.
No.
No. But meaning is what I'm really after here. Like,
right.
Because this is the thing that I learned when I first started doing astrology readings, especially doing astrology readings for 19-year-olds who wanted to know when their boyfriends were going to text back, and they had paid me $30 for 10 minutes already. So I would be like, oh yeah, your Venus is in Scorpio and it's being aspected by Mars. And then she would be like, what does that mean? What does that mean for me? You know what I mean? And she would say that immediately. So, so what I started doing, the reason why I developed the formula for working out meaning and stories and stuff like that I teach in astrology from the ground up is because I needed to efficiently make meaning. I needed to make meaning very quickly and effectively. And so now that we are in a crisis moment in the world where we don't know how to make meaning anymore, what I'm after is an ability for us to make meaning for ourselves. And the meaning doesn't live in the safe place. The meaning lives in the adventure. And so you got to go get it.
Yeah.
And that means you're going to have to face some danger. And that means that you're going to be in some weird positions that are going to probably be uncomfortable for you sometimes.
And that's fine. Do you know what I mean? I think that's the other, it's good.
Yeah, it's preferable.
Yeah, it's preferable. And I think it again gets back into that sort of like human shape. Why do we have so many stories about this, from fairy tales to larger myths or anything else? Why do we have so many stories about, and not just the traditional heroes, like this, Joseph Campbell looped everything into the hero's journey kind of stuff, but like lots of times it's even just like the mother goes to get her baby back from the witch. Do you know what I mean? Like there's all kinds of like small stories that aren't, some dude on a horse fights a dragon. Like it's, there's risk in all these things, and because it's risky to be a human. It's risky to be here doing this stuff, and there's a risk in tightening people too much. I mean, Wyatt wanted to start climbing trees like actively when he was about 3.5 years old. And I realized then that if I tried to keep him from climbing trees, it was going to damage him far more than any falling out of a tree was ever going to damage him, However, I did try to teach him to keep 3 points of contact at all times, to not grab onto branches. You don't know what the fuck that's going to happen when you grab that branch. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And because of that, he has over time built the skill out where he can do some pretty intense, amazing things, and like go in places that I don't want to go. No, like I don't, it makes me nervous, but so I think about it a lot, again, not trying to pat myself on the back, but trying to think about how we do that for ourselves as well. Of like, you want to be safe enough that you're not in constant terror, that you're able to learn, that you're gonna make it through this, but you want to be risking enough that you're coming back with some treasure, man. You don't want to do nothing. It's just,
it's about, if you've got your circle, your Tai Chi circle, your yin and yang, and you've got the wave in between, like it's about surfing that wave in between the two. Like you want 1 foot in the yang and 1 foot in the yin. You want 1 foot in the structure and the stability for your safety, and so you can get a clear idea of what's going on. But you don't want to be bounded in by that. You want to have 1 foot in the chaos, and anything can happen, surprises, unexpected things. Like the fool walks over the edge of the cliff, and it's because anything can happen down there.
Anything. He might just float.
Yeah, right. And he does sometimes, like it depends on what happens, like it could go in any direction. And that's what, that's what the adventure is.
It's just, it is such an exciting world. Like, I think a lot of times these, like we get messages around the idea that like, oh, the world is doomed, or this, like I'm very anti-doomer narratives on lots of things, but like, the world can feel restrictive. People can put, or you can allow yourself to tell a restrictive story. But if you step outside of it, this world is full of some really fucking cool shit. You can do. I'm gonna tell a slightly inappropriate story for a second, but it's a principle that's related. So I was looking around at one point to do some kinky shit in Poughkeepsie, just looking around. What's available? What's around for some kinky shit? And I saw this advertisement on FetLife for a gangbang. Okay, people like, come to this hotel, do this thing. You can just go to the thing. Mm-hmm. This wasn't particularly what I was looking for, but I was struck by the ad. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, sure. Like this is a human thing that's existing, you know. And it became a little bit of a byword for a while of like, you can just go to the gangbang. Like you could just show up. You don't have, you know, it's a Saturday.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything. You
don't have to do anything either. You can, you don't have to. But like, as a human, talking about agency again, you have the capacity to live a full life, to go and do things. The world is full of wild people. People fucking water ski. Like that shit's insane. Like if you think about water skiing, it's stupid and dangerous. And people like it. You know what I mean? Like people do like. So it's, as a personal motto, whenever I find myself making my world too small, whenever I find my story becoming too small, I just kind of say to myself, like, you can go to the gangbang, dude. Like you can go do weird shit, you know, and have a good time. And
I love this idiom for yourself.
Yeah, it's may not be everybody's personal wisdom, but you know, you'll find me and Slutty Jesus hanging out there. So you know, you're welcome to come by.
Totally.
But yeah, when you make your own fun, when you look at the world as a place that's full of opportunities and fun, it turns out it actually is. You know.
Yeah, and that's that agency again, right? Like you make your own rules and make your own decisions about things, and you know, it's the same thing. The other way that I describe it, agency is the legal way to say it. Piracy is the other way to say it, right?
Do you like some piracy?
Yeah, right. You know, it's the idea that like I can do what I want, and like, are they gonna stop me? Are they gonna chase me out in the sea and stop? Fucking try, dude. Right. I'm good at sailing. You know.
Right. Yeah, so, I'm good at knowing which tractor works, and you're not. You know, I'm good at sailing.
Guerrilla warfare. You know what I mean? Like, I know these woods. You're not. Right. You're not gonna outdo me in my home turf, dog. Like, I got this. You know.
All of those too rely on a sense of building your excellence, your arete, to find the Greek term there, but like to be good at something, to want to be good at something, to take the time to be good at something.
Yeah. Well, all right. So we're jumping the gun a little bit, but next week we're going to talk about ethics and morality. And there's an argument to be made that the moral thing to do is to get good at doing the things that you do.
Yeah.
So if you are more effective at doing the things that you are trying to do, then you are less likely to err and do the wrong thing, right? Yeah. So if your job is to throw a thing and to hit that mark, if you're not good at throwing things, then you're going to fuck it up and you're going to hit something else and you're going to break something, right? You're going to make a mistake and you're going to cause problems. That would be called sinning, right? Is to miss the mark, right? Yep. But if you get good at it and you hit the mark more frequently than you miss the mark, then it's because you have made yourself into an excellent whatever it is. And that is sometimes the most moral thing to do. And if we think about that, then sometimes I know that my performance goes down if I haven't been sleeping properly. So sometimes the most moral thing I can do is go to fucking bed.
Which is where we're at now. We're putting
Thank you, beautiful people. Go to BrokersBrian.com. Go to ZamboniFunk.com. Appreciate y'all. See y'all next time.
Good night, everybody.